Yeah, my name is Tobias Kluge. I'm the Mr. AI of an Explorer. There are some colleagues sitting in the audience. It's nice to be home at Curtin. Yeah, I'm a software engineer, so by heart I love to code. But on the other side, as Mr. AI, I'm responsible to bring AI into some kind of money for us internally to better develop software and especially also for our customers. Nextplorer is a software agency. We have customers in business and in governments. So we are kind limited when it comes to doing fancy AI research projects. Our engineers would love to do, but currently there's not a lot of money for our customers that we can use for AI in research. So we have to focus on making AI successful so we can do more research hopefully later. Yeah, we are looking for new colleagues. If you would like to do applied AI and have some experience, come to us. And if you would like to learn, yeah, I have some more inputs later. I didn't know what will be presented to us, so I think a lot of the introduction you have already seen. For me, it's important to briefly give you some input why I'm talking about specific things. One thing is we are a Microsoft partner, so we sell Microsoft products, and of course also other things. We have tools for AI that you can use for configuration, but that's not what we are here. We are here for doing things like stuff we can do, we can code, we can put together, or even train models. So currently we are, I think, in the doable thing because of the project and the amount of budgets we get from our customers. But we would love to do hard things or even harder things like music theory, you know, rocket science, music theory. Yeah, I don't know what's harder for you. Currently, it's still hard. What can you use for AI and customer projects? We start with RAG because it's the simplest way to do AI with some customer data, because finally the customer wants to use AI with their data to solve their problems. How it works, you're already here. We will check later. You can do fine-tuning, it's also interesting to do, and also train your own models. You get the slides later if you want, but you can also take the pictures. For us, we mostly start with the RAG approach because it's the easiest way to really get some data with AI combined for a customer case. Who can draw me the picture? What happens now? So we have the user that wants to interact and get some data out of the AI application. Normally you have the chat application, you have the AI model, and of course you have the search database that contains the user's data. How it works together, we already know, so I'm briefly going through. So finally the user gets an answer and doesn't know what happens, and we will have to look into the black box that is responsible for creating the answer and how we can build it to really make it successful for our customer projects. Yeah, one thing is how can we get AI? I mean, the easiest way to just use OpenAI and their API. That's really nice, but relationship to privacy, and we have government customers, so it's not something we can use. But for me personally, it's the easiest way to interact with a LLM and not do anything with hosting all the stuff. For customer projects, this is one of the approach that is the easiest way to start. Use a hosted model somewhere that you can fine-tune, interact with it, and combine it. You can add some security stuff. So a hosted PaaS model as Azure OpenAI. Sorry for mentioning Microsoft again, but there was Google, now it's Microsoft. And of course, you can host your own models, but for me, it's some of the hard parts because you probably need some special hardware, expert knowledge, and this is quite hard, even in Switzerland, when you pay a lot of money, because you don't even get the hardware, probably, if you would like to really build AI data centers. So this is where we normally start. We've had a launch session today about how to operate these magic AI applications. And there's this MLOps or LLMOps approach, how you can do. And for me, it's really important that you know what you have to track, what's necessary to really monitor and keep track of your system. The first thing is, of course, the data. So you have to somehow get the data, you have to optimize it, clean it. The gold data was mentioned before. And finally, you have some search data that contains the data of the user or of your customer And of course, you have to monitor somehow things, so you have the training data and evaluation data. But it's for the ML engineering normally. So selecting the right model and making it suitable for your needs also requires some work. This is when it comes in the AI model version. What's necessary, because if you use AI models, they are new models. You've seen the GPT-4o released on Monday, so it's completely working different than before probably, but you don't know. So you really have to make sure that you can measure what the change is. So you have to evaluate it, and maybe even if you do pre-training or fine-tuning, then of course measure it. And finally, you have this custom AI model that you use the specific version. And coding, I think this is all we can do, or we all can code, so it's the easiest part probably. We have to have some software and infrastructure. Infrastructure is code if you're in the cloud. So finally, what you're shipping is a big hamburger. We look again. We have the data, we have the AI model, and we have on top the software. So this is what you have to make sure that you really monitor it well, because otherwise you don't know what happens and what the change really influenced in the output. Because at the end, you would like to monitor what's on production. So if the customer is using it, the end users are using it, and over time it just feels worse and you don't know why. Maybe you changed something in the code, or there was some new data, or there was some information outside of the system and it's not part of the data. Or, yeah, the AI model that you have been using by the vendor has been changed because of their lifetime cycle, and you didn't mention or you didn't realize. So it's really important to monitor all this stuff and be aware what happens. So we have to somehow tag all these elements and measure it on production. This is what MLOps or LLMOps is, from my understanding from today, what you have to take care of. Yeah, so this is the introduction now. So everything you know, we are on the same page. And yeah, how can you do customer happy with AI? I mean, it's really easy. Just 5 simple steps. You talk to him, you provide some ideas, you iterate, you build an MVP, yeah. You do some pilot, you do the first flights with the customers. You ship the release 1 if you're lucky. And then, of course, you have to operate this this version, whatever is on production, and maintain the quality. That's easy, really. It's just 5 steps. I mean, come on. It's an hour or 2, you can work on it. Yeah, it took us a year, probably. We started a year ago with doing the first talks to our customers, or customers with us. It was, I think, more direction, the customer asking us, can you do AI with us? And we don't know. We have been data science doing a lot, but not a lot of AI stuff. So this was like reverse engineering what we did, what's now in the next slides. So getting the customer talking, I think, is depending on the customer and the people you talk to, quite easy or not. Yeah, all have visions and ideas what they can do, but finally you really have to start small, so focus on things. And for me it's important, by the end the customer has to pay money, and money must be returned from customer perspective, so really focus on the points that return some return on investment. How do you get the feedback in a quite good way is, of course, having different people, not just the manager, but maybe somebody from operations. So really have a diverse set of people that really have a different perspective and discuss with each other, because this is the important part. Yeah, design thinking would one thing what you could do, but I'm not the expert in these things. Do whatever it's necessary. And finally, you just get an idea or a list of ideas, and you have to somehow evaluate what's really the most important thing for the customer. Yeah, in the AI meetup yesterday, there were some questions. Yeah, what are use cases we can start with? And I was discussing today and yesterday with colleagues, and here are some I think that might be helpful. LLM is the magic tool when it comes to understanding text by a computer. So you can use it for anything that's related to text quite easily, and I think in a quite good way. So if you do a RAG, or you provide some context to the LLM and ask some questions, it's quite helpful. So you could add some log files and ask the LLM, yeah, give me some information about a specific event. Data extraction is also one. If you have a crawler, you're doing a lot of collecting data in an unstructured way, you can use the LLM to extract the information you need. Same for PDFs, just scan them, and we saw today. It's even working on your laptop, on your mobile phone probably. So it's really, really easy. in theory. I don't know how to code it, but it's solved. So images and videos, can you get text out of it, and whatever you want. What also think is interesting, it's probably not yet LLM, using images and videos to get some quality control things. But I'm not the expert in ML, what's possible, so you have to talk probably to engineers, or the engineers have to talk to their customers and tell them what they can do. And not from the technical perspective, but really from the features. So finally, you have satisfied the customer, you agreed to build a first small version. So for me, it's really it's really a minimum viable product. It means not fancy UI, not fancy features, uploading documents, whatever, but it's really just the minimum thing what's necessary to prove that the use case the user is having is really working and doable with technology. How do you measure if it's really successful or not? So you somehow have to agree with your customer how you can measure the success of the system. It must be a number from my technical perspective. Just saying, oh, it's good, it's fine, it's quite hard to get maybe thousands of Swiss francs for your project of funding. And writing down is often forgotten, so in the end you cannot remember. So write it down, hang it on your wall and think about it. And the goal is not to build a perfect product, but really just the minimum product to solve the problem of the customer or prove that you can solve it. It's really just you can show, okay, the technique is working, you have some data from the customer that solves the problem. Problems we've had while starting this is, of course, data doesn't work. You don't get the right data. Then the customer sends you data that you cannot use because of privacy or personal identifying information. So a proof of concept you would really do with small data sets, with specific data sets that are easy to use. Infrastructure is often not easy if the customer is not working in the cloud, for our cases. I would suggest use a blueprint and start with some that is working already, so you can really iterate and don't have to learn how to code the stuff if you're not the expert in this, because it helps you a lot to get you starting. And yeah, the last thing, it's one of the things that really was a problem for us. At the end, you don't know if the system that you're building is good or not, so somehow get the experts from the customer, evaluate how good the system and the result is. So getting experts from a customer that's really busy or has people that are not interested is quite hard. So this must be clear that you need this. How can you then finally come up with something that works? For me, RAG and the blueprint is the easiest way to start. Just there are good enough blueprints on the web, copy them. It takes probably a day or two if you have some experience with the stack to get this up and running and enter some data. Chat interface is the easiest way for the user because you somehow can do stuff and you don't have to provide specific needs or tools or whatever. So that's the easiest way to get the user just interacting with the data and give you some feedback. And let him really do it. Let multiple customers and experts use the system and then observe what they are searching for, what the results are getting, and if they have problems, and then bring them together and let them talk. And then I have ideas what they really could do with the system. We could get some feedback from the customer. Or we could do some, there's some problem inside. So they really have ideas, and now you can really talk to them and try to solve different use cases. Easiest way, of course, is just a chatbot, but for me, chatbot is it's not my favorite user interface, so I want to have it integrated in the application. And we've seen some tools today. The agent framework is quite helpful, that the AI learns to do specific steps that the user is currently doing manually. And of course, agents can be used for reasoning or combining these steps into appropriate steps they can do together, like taking a photo, searching for some text, and classifying the things you can let the agent do step by step. Last thing is, we've seen agents are not perfect yet. Maybe you can think about integrating external applications using APIs. It's quite, it's really somehow working, but I'm not sure if it really works. So it's the magic of the LLM is can be quite challenging. Yes, and finally, you can integrate it in the customer use cases, processes, or line of business application, their Fachapplikation. I was doing some, there was the semantic kernel thing, it's the agent framework from Microsoft, and I was doing some pet project over the Christmas vacation. My wife wasn't that satisfied, but I tried to I have a friend of mine that has a Shopify account and a website, and I'm helping him to optimize the shop a bit. And my idea was, one, I always have to do the same things. Why not automate it? So I use the APIs of Google Ads, Google's Webmaster Console, and Facebook, Shopify, whatever. I integrated them in a quite easy way and put it all in agent functions. And then I was able to use the chat and ask him, what are my visitors from the website yesterday? And create me a campaign for Facebook or for Google search related to a specific page. Or what keywords could I add to the page to improve the search ranking? Because it was the mixture of the LLM, the magic that knows a lot of how to do SEO and SEM, how to optimize a page. And there were some API functions that I described with some plain text, and the LLM did all the magic. It was quite funny and it kind of worked, but of course, Christmas vacation was over and I had to return to Mr. AI role at Nextblog. Yes, but for me it's important. Try the stuff, hack it somehow together. So this is the MVP version 0.1. Yeah, you see the colors again. I'm trying to deal with all the different levels we have to talk about. The application, it's easy, we can control. AI model, we just build, so we don't have to think a lot of it. And the data stuff we have to integrate. And our goal is to make the system step by step better. So we've seen the MLOps, we have to take control of all the steps and see how it's the easiest way to improve the accuracy of the system. So we do some adjusting screws. So how was it called? Schwellwert was the internal term we used in German. So it's in English you say experiments. It's quite easy, but adjusting screws are so much better. Yeah, and so we do some experiments. We measure the output of the change, and then of course if it's better, we implement it or not. How can you measure this success? We have discussed internally, and we come with just an easy solution. Yeah, now it works. Our approach, ta-da. We need, of course, experts. How do you get experts that don't have time? So we had some workshops, 2 or 3 workshops, 2 hours each for 5 to 10 experts that were really busy to get their input for the system. So we really ask them to provide a list of questions that are typically used for this use case. It's a support application, the typical support problems of the user base, and what answer they would expect, and where would the user find the solution, in what source document, for example, for RUG would it be. And we put all this together. We had about 50, 60 answers or test cases. And to be honest, it's not statistically relevant. If you really do the math and you see you cannot do anything with it because it's not really good enough data to really measure the system. We had many different modules, so by the end you probably would have need 200, 500 questions to really see it's getting better or not. So we asked the question to our system by the API and got the output, what the machine was saying, and then we compared the results. We asked the experts to rate what the machine was saying and what the expert have answered and say if it's similar, if it's good, if it's really correct or not. So we had some kind of good enough. And then we did the same, asking GPT-4 to evaluate the questions, like the original question and then the answer of the chatbot. And GPT-4 was similar to the experts, but had no domain knowledge. So you cannot say it's good what we did, but somehow it allowed us to experiment without experts. So this was quite helpful to really do a kind of MLOps, really do experiments and measure it without any expert things. So one thing last, always asking any tools. We use the Ragas framework. I think we still use it. It's not perfect, but it's good enough for what we've been using. And it really helps you to get fast feedback and iterate and get responses. These are some samples, what we did. Why did we stop at Markdown? Why didn't we do anything more? The problem was, of course, the money, because we really had a small amount of time we've been able to use for research in this case. So we had like a sample rec application. We added some content for glossaries, so specific terms of the customer. We used semantic search. You remember probably this big bunch of data there's somewhere. and you can do it by vectors, somewhere in the room, or semantic means it's like a more understanding of the content. And using semantic search was better, but of course the best would have been semantic search and vector search combined, but we didn't have enough time. And then we use different, like the data that you get, you have to somehow make available to the LLM. And initially it was HTML, and we implemented Markdown also. And then we did some header chunking. That means how you cut the text you feed into the search database and then later to the LLM. And the initial approach was just cutting like after 1,000 characters, like the last sentence within the frame. And then we changed it and said, okay, before each heading, like you have a paragraph, you have a heading, and we cut it before the paragraph, or before the heading, and then you had a more relevant content element that was better positioned inside of the room of the vector. So this is quite nice. And we have been able to improve the accuracy of 50 questions, like from 60 to 70%. Perfect. Bam, bam, sorry, was the answer. Yes, so now we are ready to go to our customers. We start the first flying. Yes, how do you get a user in using a new system? Because it's an MVP, it's somehow limited. So it's talk to the customer and tell him that it's just an MVP, that it's just showing you what you could do, but it's not the finished product. Doing pilots with customers forever, it doesn't add any additional value. So we did one with 2 months, but at the end, the customer is doing most of the pilot thing in the first 2 weeks. So probably it's good enough to really have a short feedback cycle and see what it works. How can you measure the results? Everybody's doing thumbs ups and thumbs down. We too. I mean, it's the easiest way to get some feedback, but you only get the negative feedback, so you know, okay. It's quite not that easy to really interpret it, but you have to learn it. And maybe it's not successful. What do you do? Going back or really screwing it and saying, no, it doesn't work? It depends on the customer and you have some more money. So assuming we are successful, the customer is happy, the pilot users are happy. Now we ship our Starship and fly to the Mars. Of course, Moon is gone. When you go to production, there are things that are quite important. One thing we saw, the biggest and most important thing from our side is having the data in control. So you don't know if all the data is correct, if it's updated. So really make sure that you have control over your data. Check what kind of data is allowed to use. If you have AI and application running in the cloud, there might probably some restrictions. If there are user information inside, personal identifier information, you probably have problems. So it's quite a challenge to really get this to the cloud. So better on machine or on-prem if you can. But yeah, this is just think about it when you go to production. The customer always wants more. So from the agency perspective, really make sure you just limit the scope and stick to it. So make a backlog, prioritize, and remove everything that's not necessary for release 1.0. MLOps, you will hear it once again from my side. It's quite important to really make sure that you control the system on production because it will change. And if you're shipping now your product to all of the user base, there might be people that are not interested in new tools, that don't know what AI is, what it's doing. So really make sure to communicate it well. So there's a term of change and adoption. I think it's really important, especially for new tools, to really make sure that people understand what is and what it's not. Yeah, there are other things like multilingual content. You have access rights, probably customers or users that are not allowed to have specific data. And security, I don't care. No, of course, it's really important. There's so many more things you have to take care. So really, the first version will take you longer than you expect. So have it small and really easy. Operation. MLOps, again, it's really important. Make sure that you really have the thing in place. For me, it's we're still working on it, right? The thing is to really monitor what elements of this hamburger are in production, what version of code, of data you're using, of the AI model, that you really, when you look at the data and see, something changed on production, the user are not anymore happy, everything is saying thumbs down and you don't know why, then you're really screwed. And I think it's not a good thing I would want to have. It was mentioned in the talk before, or in the launch session, Grafana would be one way to have like a dashboard where you put all your information together and then you have one dashboard that shows you the current information of the product quality. Good. Perfect. Yes, the last thing, it's money. Take care of this one. And sitting on your side of the presentation, how would I start? I would really start getting in there, trying to get some experience. You don't have to learn the hard facts. I mean, it's applying AI with models. It's good enough. Talk to your customers' use cases and not about techniques. Iterate somehow, step by step with the customer, find a good solution, and finally, talk to each other. It's really important. I mean, we are all new. It's 1 year, 2 year LLMs. We are probably all on the same page. So we have a meetup, come there, and we can talk about our experience. That's it.